Love you all. It's a blessing to be here. Thank you, Reverend Judy and Reverend Glenda. This is an honor to be in spaces like this. Like Reverend Judy was saying, there's a lot going on in this world, and the answer doesn't lie in the big policies. It lies in our micro deeds, and it lies in the spiritual revolution that one by one, a heart is transformed to say, I can do my small part wherever I am, whoever I am. And not in judging that the world is in disaster, but to say, where am I right now and how can I serve in a small way? And if we get that spirit, then where there is actual disaster, those people will be serving. Maybe some people will go there, whatever it is, but it really requires like this spiritual revolution from within the heart. I like to use that example of an egg cracking. You know, when an egg cracks from the outside, you have scrambled eggs. But when it cracks from within, you have life. You know, this idea that if we all little by little can crack from within, then life changes on this planet. And in our changing, the world changes, you know. So empty hands is in that vein. The message for me, the reason why I connect so deeply to the word of empty hands is, you know, we all come onto this planet empty-handed. And there's nobody that says, no, I came with some diapers, or I came with this or that. We're all literally coming empty-handed, and we all, after this play is over, we leave empty-handed. You know, it's just simple as that we come with nothing, we soon leave with nothing. And the more that becomes apparent to us, the more that we actually live this moment in between in a beautiful dance. You know, the more we can conceptualize that, the less stress we put on ourselves, and the less suffering we go through. Because we realize that, what am I suffering about? Why am I even worried about this? Oh, this short time, why not help somebody else? Why not share a little what I have? Oh, this short time. So this concept, for me, is constantly grounding. It's helpful to realize we forget that we're going to be leaving soon, and that we'll be leaving with nothing in our hands. You know? So, you know, it's something that I feel like, as often as possible, it's a beautiful thing to try to reflect on. Reverend Judy and Reverend Glenda were sharing about my journey, and a little of that journey, it extends through a variety of experiences. You know, I was there in front of the towers when they fell in front of me, and saw the world in its darkest moment for me in my life. That was the darkest moment that I've seen. People suffering and dying. That shifted my heart to say, what am I doing here? You know, on this planet, little by little, different things. I went through a hand injury, whatever. It's a small micro thing for the planet. But for me, it made me question, what am I doing with my time? You know, I think all of us have these little signs. And it's just a matter of whether we want to read them or not, to ask that question, how am I using my time? I love this picture because it wasn't like this. I had to Photoshop it, edit it around. It actually had the head in the middle. But I love this idea of how do we live in alignment with our head, our heart, and our hands. But the leader becomes the heart. You know, so then the head starts following the heart instead of the other way around. And that flow of life, when that starts happening, is a different energy level. Not only for ourselves, but for the people around us. So for me, this journey that I feel like I'm walking right now is trying to walk towards this path. And there's a lot of bumps and bruises when we're conditioned otherwise. But I feel like I love this commitment. Mahatma Gandhi is a beautiful picture on our brochure today. But he had this beautiful quote. He had so many, and that's where I live right now in the Gandhi ashram in India, a state called Gujarat, a city called Ahmedabad, and this is where Mahatma Gandhi moved to upon coming from South Africa. He had spent 20 plus years in South Africa. When he got the calling to come back and serve in India, he took a tour of India in general class, in some of the worst conditions, to get an understanding of the plight of humanity in this country. And after that, he said he wanted to make a sacred space like this, where people could learn, grow, and fight via nonviolence and love for what they thought was the truth and what was right in this country at that time. This was in 1918. He 17, he started this ashram. And for 12 years he was there until he went on this famous Salt March, which was one of the epic moments of the freedom movement in India. And so this sacred space now is not only a National Historic Site, but for us we have a service hub there where we're serving the underprivileged communities. And that's luckily been a space for me to be a part of over the last 5.5 years. He has this beautiful quote. He says, "The best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others." I didn't really understand what it meant, but I loved the idea, because when I moved there, I was trying to find myself, and I still am. But realizing that as we start helping others or serving others in different ways, in different capacities, our ego starts melting. And the ego starts melting initially because you think you're helping. That's already the ego speaking. And realize you're the one that's being served, your heart is being served. And so that process has been a process of service, but really, more importantly, selfishly speaking, really trying to find myself. And as I do that, as I work on myself, this desire comes more to want to offer back whatever we can. So initially, I just wanted to share a few stories of the chance I've had, the blessings I've had, the learnings and the gifts I've received out there. Initially I had this idea to create a musical with children. And it took me about a year to select and find 16 children from our local slum communities at an NGO that we all serve at there called Manav Sadhana, which means devotion to humanity. And I had seen a show that they had done, this nonprofit had done in 2002 while I was living in New York. They had brought 14 children from our slum communities there and done a tour around the US, and happened to be in New Jersey, and my friend happened to tell me, my friend Mona, she happened to call me and said, "You have to go see this." Not very likely for New Yorkers to go visit Jersey, but it was something at that time that I was really kind of compelled to do because my friend, and I went there and I saw this show and I was just deeply moved because these were 14 children from some of the darkest spaces of our planet, under-resourced spaces. I wouldn't say darkest, those under-resourced spaces. And here they are shining this light. And the message of the song, the show was called Unity, Ekta. And that had inspired me. So when I was kind of turning my back on my original path of life and kind of saying, how do I want to change it up? I knew I wanted to use arts. And so I approached this nonprofit saying, what if we did something similar to what I had seen 10, 12 years ago? And they were all of support. And so we started this journey called Ekatva, which means oneness. And it took some time to find these 16 kids, but we did. And we became a family, literally for 3 years, every day. Spend 4 to 5 hours every day together. And we'd start like this, in a circle, for about 45 minutes, exploring our day, exploring our feelings. And then little by little, as we were creating this musical, we'd have to do, obviously, exercise, and choreography with the Performing Arts Academy, and then we created this musical. These are the 8 girls, beautiful queens, and these are kings, the 8 boys. And we created this musical called Oneness, called Ekatva. And there were a lot of lessons for me learned, I think, going in there, especially with this old mind frame of a business school graduate, in a sense. It's always that you plan and strategize and achieve, and you get what you want. And here, working with kids, as most parents know, you don't get what you want as parents. It's very humbling. My brother's laughing back there. It's very humbling, right? And I think going into underprivileged communities, it was even more humbling because here you are thinking you're bringing so much opportunity for them. The ego speaking once again, and realizing that, dude, you're doing nothing. You're being served. You're getting a chance to, if you are in the right spirit, to plant some seeds. But you're not growing fruits, buddy. That's God's work, and that happens over time. And that was a lesson that became deeply ingrained for me. Here's a picture. So the tour ended up, the show ended up being supported by loving family members all across the world. Some of them are here today. And because of that support, and because of God's support, we got visas for all these kids, passports, and we did a 2-month tour around the world. And these kids shine light, so much bright light, in so many spaces in this country and in Europe. And This is them in Zellerbach Auditorium. What a blessing, what a journey. And the focus on the day-to-day level was actually the small things, doing the small acts. Aside from creating the show, but doing acts where we were actually practicing what does it mean to be connected in unison with the world. Acts of kindness. I remember after practice every day we offered our Performing Arts Academy that we were getting taught at to clean the bathrooms every day. They were like, what do you want to do? I said, no, we want to give back. After practice every day, we want to clean the bathroom. So the boys and I would clean the boys' bathroom and the girls would, and then we would go to the park across the street and clean the park, and then we would have snacks and prayer, and then call it a night. But for me, these small things were so important. Putting our slippers in a straight line before we got onto the platform of the stage or practice, that was important. Not necessarily that they didn't get the choreography 100%, but these small things, this whole journey became Mother Teresa has this beautiful quote. She says, we can do no great things, but we can do small things with great love. And that, I've been taught so many times by the souls out there how important the small things, and I think I forgot that in my life. In my journey, it always became about the big things, about the big impact, about scaling. And here I'm being taught that one relationship at a time is so important. One heart, one act. And I love this quote about seed planting because this has become a mantra to try to learn and practice with this idea that the true meaning of life is to plant trees or seeds under whose shade you do not expect to sit. Now, how hard is that? To do something, to offer ourselves, to plant seeds for others, or even for ourselves, but not to want this return right away. So working with kids for me, for example, it was like, just through my own being could I plant seeds, not by telling them what to do. And because those seeds in their heart will be ripened whenever they're meant to ripen. But they'll know that there was this elder brother of theirs that was being a certain way, not that was telling me to do a certain thing. This importance of changing our being and planting seeds through our being, through our thoughts, through our actions. After this experience was over, a 3-year journey with the children, and then after we got back from the tour, I purposefully decided I didn't want to do anything big anymore at that point, because all my life was a series of just big projects. And so I kind of just served in small ways in our community. And our friend Daniel Nimo, who I think most of you might know, him and I synchronously connected through a series of beautiful events. We became friends and brothers. And I was so inspired by Dan's song, Planting Seeds. Has anybody heard that song? Yeah, it's a beautiful song. And I had this itch a couple years ago to start writing music again. And I approached Dan, I said, Dan, this song, Planting Seeds, this idea of planting our seeds but then letting go, doing our part but not trying to expect anything in return, it's so important. And I feel like writing to that, would you mind doing a hip-hop version of your song? He's like, well, I've never done hip-hop. But let's sit in the studio and try something out. And so then, we ended up creating a song that I wanted to share with you. And it's called Planting Seeds. And more than the song, to me, the most important thing is this message, this idea that can we offer ourselves to this planet, to our friends, to our family, to whatever and whoever, and yet not expect things in return, not expect credit for it, not expect to control it. Is there a way to practice this? Little by little. The song is called Planting Seeds. I spent a long time running. I never knew then, but I know now that You take steps away instead of towards it. What a rush, feeling freedom with nothing to hold. We've been taught that what you touch will always turn to gold, but now we're learning when we let it go, it overflows. But no credit is taken, no credit is owned. The higher power working deeper when the seeds are sowed. When the seeds are true, they're seeds of gold, but the real gold is joy when life starts to flow. But it doesn't just smile, because now you know. I spent a long time running, I never knew then, but I know now, that the fruits they always come in, but you can't go around just knocking them down. It takes a long time to show it. We plant the seeds then, and we look at them now. But the roots are always growing, no matter if I'm there or never around. Alright, so we're going to try to sing this 3 times together. Here we go. 4, 3. Whatever grows will grow. Whatever dies will die. Whatever works will work. Whatever flies will fly. Whatever fails will fail. What's meant to soar will soar. I am planting seeds. Whatever grows will grow. Whatever dies will die. Whatever works will work. Whatever flies will fly. Whatever fails will fail. What's meant to soar will soar. I am planting. Last time. Whatever grows, let it grow, let it grow. If it dies, it dies for more. And when it works, it works. Woo! Let it fly, let it fly. When it fails, it fails. It's a song, let it soar. We're planting seeds in nothing more. Thank you for singing along. Big group. I feel like we should go on tour together. Can we get a bus? The Common Ground Tour. I like it. With this tour, for me, people ask me, why am I doing this tour, actually? And I think originally what inspired me was reconnecting to music and realizing that it could be of service. We're talking about service as the theme of the month. And I didn't want to go on tour, and I call it a pilgrimage, but tour is easier for people to understand. But I didn't want to go on tour or do this pilgrimage if it was me as an artist going on tour and to entertain, which is great too, because that brings joy to people. But I really wanted to say, can this be of service? And, I feel like service comes in really tiny ways. It's not changing the world. And I love this quote by Desmond Tutu: be kind wherever you are. It's those small little acts put together that can change the world. And for me, this is the ultimate message of this offering, or of this pilgrimage, or this tour. That if we as human beings in our lives, we all have our own path that we walk. Even if you're husband and wife, you have your own daily path that you walk. If we can sprinkle our little bits of kindness and compassion, generosity and awareness in our path on a daily basis, no matter who we are, where we are, what our beliefs are, but that if we can just do that, then that is huge. That's the biggest medicine for this world. Kindness, compassion, in small ways. In small ways, And that I always think of, like, if we were to take all the teachings of this planet and the spiritual teachings and all the billions of pages of scriptures, and we were to say, how do we condense this down to one word? I really feel like compassion would be the final word chosen. Very simple, all the ideologies and thoughts, they come down to how are we acting it out in our daily life. This young girl, Priyanka, she is my teacher in kindness, and I have many, I feel like. But this young girl is amazing. 14 years old. She lives in a slum community in the city of Pune, which is 2 hours east of Bombay. Grew up in an orphanage, pretty much. Father is in jail for homicide for life. So she grew up with her mother, but mother dropped her off to a Catholic orphanage every day because she couldn't take care of her, especially as a baby. And she was working and trying to make money for her. Priyanka ends up growing up, obviously, in such a beautiful way, and she then gets chosen for this musical called Maya, the Maya musical, ran by an organization called Teach for India, which is an organization that a friend of mine started. And so we meet through that. I had done a workshop with these students that were part of this musical, and then 6 months later we ended up performing together because they had memorized one of my songs called Being Kind. And so they asked me to come, and we went to the city called Hyderabad, and we performed with the 30 kids, and at that time Priyanka hands me this card that I end up reading 2 days later at the airport, which I was so sad to. But I read it, and she shook my world. Because here's a young girl coming from her background, telling me her dreams, saying that she's been inspired, that her dream is to serve mankind and be as compassionate as possible as she grows up. That was her dream. That how can she become a compassionate human being? And now it's kind of, she started to narrow down where she wants to, how she wants to use her energy in this world. And still, she's only 15. So I was really inspired to bring her to my city. It all worked out. We were able to get her a flight. Parent, mom agreed, teachers, everyone, and she came to our city and spent 3 days at a retreat. And she brings her friend, Nia. Okay, Nia is her teddy bear that she's had for over 10 years. And what I learned about Priyanka at the time was she had two prized possessions, her mother and her teddy bear, Nia. Okay, and because of time, I'm gonna cut some of the story short. But the following, 2 weeks later, both her and I were asked to do a keynote speech at a conference for Teach for India, which is a big educational nonprofit in India. And she shakes the crowd by saying, we don't need teachers on this planet. And we're like, okay, Priya. And she's like, we need education fairs. And she shook everyone because there were policymakers, principals, administrators, everybody from Bombay in this 700 people conference, and she was giving this speech. She says, we need teachers that lead from their heart, that are not teaching, but that are caring. Through caring and compassion, you end up teaching, sure. And on this weekend, she taught me two things about following your heart. One is she came up to me after this conference and hands me her piggy bank. And I say, Priya, I don't want this. What is this? And I shake it and I hear the coins and I see the rupees in there. So I don't want this, Priya. She says, no, you take it and you do something good for somebody else with it. She says, with this, do some acts of kindness, but I don't want any credit for it. The next day, these kids, the Maya kids, the musical kids, they go to this elderly hospice. She calls me on Wednesday, and Priyanka's English is immaculate. As a 15-year-old, I'm just amazed. I don't know where she gets all this. I'm envisioning her as the Prime Minister of India one day, by the way. This is the girl telling me, just 20 years from now, be on the lookout. So she calls me on Wednesday saying she's kind of sad. I said, what happened, Priya? She said, well, we went to this elderly hospice on Sunday, and I had to fly back to my city. And this lady who was on her deathbed, within the next few years was expected, but no family. She had no supporting family, so they went to just spend some time with them. So I was spending time with this lady, and I gave her, I was holding her hand. She's from South India, so they didn't speak the same language, many languages in India. So she said, I was holding her hand, and then I realized that I want to do something more, and I remember I had chocolate in my backpack. So she went outside, she got chocolate, and Nia was sitting there, so she grabbed Nia, and she came back, so Nia could hug her. She gave her chocolate, and the lady's face opened up, and the smiles came out. And then she gave her Nia, and the lady's face just glowed. And what Priyanka realized is that this lady thought that she was gifting her Nia, her teddy bear. And Priyanka right then said to herself, and she was sharing this with me, that once I saw her face, I realized I didn't want Nia back. And when she was calling me, she was sad because she missed Nia, and she felt bad that she missed Nia. She told me this lesson she learned though. She says, I don't regret it, and I'm so happy I did it. Had I listened to my mind, I wouldn't have done it. She says, but because I just followed what my heart told me right at that moment, this lady had Nia, and I feel so fulfilled for having given her this prized possession of mine. And so the lesson that she taught us, I feel like teachers like this are all around us. That when our heart says something, those small acts in our day where our heart is like, oh, I should have done that, or I could do that, or I could have held that door for that person, or I could have struck a conversation, that person was lonely. But then our mind gets involved and says, no, that would be awkward. No, you're trying to, goody two-shoe, it looks too bad, blah, blah, blah. And we don't end up doing a lot of that. But I think that's a lesson that when our heart says something, how do we start being more courageous and acting on it? And letting our days be filled with moments of courage like this, where we start serving in these smaller ways. So I wanted to share this song called Being Kind. And it really is about this simple, I think, but profound idea that it's all about as many micro moments of love that we can offer, and those build up. And there's a part of the song that says, grab a friend and give a hug. So please feel free to go in a frenzy.
Well, my heart starts sinking and I'm thinking, what's the reason why we holding back from being kind? What's the disease within us sense? We are fine, it'll all happen. One small step. But the world is full of violence and it needs a little kindness. I just sit and pray in silence and God shows me the signs. Open my eyes, realize we are fine. One small step. Last night I'm walking home and the homeless man says hello. With a smile, let me know that he's got a lot of hope. He says, have faith, young man, we are fine. The world is kind. Small acts we do together, even though maybe alone, changes the world for the better, so we can call it home. And this is life as we know, and our hearts are aligned. The magic that unfolds, one small act at a time. Throw your hearts up, let it fly high. Let your love for all the world spread through the skies. Let it drop down, let it all go. Spreading kindness through every single living soul. Can you see your love for me shining through? Is what you see. I can see in you. See you and me will be out of time. And kindness will be all we can do. Yeah, feeling grateful today. Never thought this day would come. Where I would feel it and say, each and every one of us have paved the way before. Now we're all just moving up. When I'm kind with you, you pay it forward. This is how we build. I've never had faith, but now I'm seeing you. I wanna give you my life. Wanna spread love before I die. Thank you, God, for finally let me realize when I serve man, I'm really serving you. In the sky, smiles everywhere, 'cause now everybody's got the love. Ain't no life without the love. If it is, it ain't
things here. Planet Earth is my favorite, but I'm going to skip it. But it's, the one thing I did want to share about this concept of this image of the planet is these astronauts going up there and they go up into space and they look back and they see this ball. They've named this effect, they call it the overview effect. That they get up there, they look back, and in their mind they hold all this about the planet Earth that they've been commissioned to hear, right? All the news and all the media, all this, the differences in the country. And they go up there and they're like, there's our little marble, that small little thing. And this overview effect is this concept that astronauts have been deeply moved by. To realize that we're all this one being, that we're all just, and not only just human beings, we're all this family that have been put on this earth at this moment in time to be a part of this journey at this moment. And who knows how long it'll last, but that feeling, that shift in consciousness to feel that blessedness, that oneness. And I feel like we all have access to it. We don't have to go up to space. I mean, we see the planet, we see the blue marble, we see all these things. So, there's a friend, Pancho, who really lives by this. He's truly a global citizen. Yeah.
Can you go to the next one?
What's that?
Can you go to the next one?
Sure, okay. Just saying maybe go a few extra minutes. I'll share Pancho's story then really quickly because it's very powerful. So this is a dear friend of ours that from Mexico City who went to UC Berkeley to do his PhD in astrophysics. Brilliant soul, but his father was a deep practitioner of nonviolence. He found out that his research was being used with the government for nuclear war research. And he quit. He quit his PhD in the middle of it, saying, I can't be a part of this. He lost his student visa at the same time, but decided that he wanted to stay in the Bay Area and keep serving. And so he started this little project, experiment, that the world just opened up. Somebody donated their house, and he started a home called Casa de Paz, House of Peace. And it's in the middle of Fruitvale, which is a gang-ridden district of East Oakland. And that was his dream, to bring love and peace where there's darkness. And so he started this experiment, and it's been thriving ever since. The three neighbors, broken down their walls so that they can build a garden there. They started a garden called the Canticle Garden, where that's where they do their daily labor. And then the gifts, the fruits and vegetables they give to the community, they give to the community every Sunday. They hold weekly meditation gathering called Awaken every Friday for all public, anybody that wants to come, where they sit in silence for an hour, share for an hour, and then have dinner together next hour. There's a couple rules in the Casa de Paz. One is no wearing shoes inside, and the second is to never lock the doors. So locking the doors, what are we telling the community by locking the doors? So he's anchored himself in a space, and whenever there's conflict in that space, always approaching the police officers or gang members, whatever, these guys are just love warriors. They really are coming from that space. How do we bring love into a space where usually there's judgment? These pictures were when the Occupy movement was happening, and Pancho's response was to pray. While everybody in front of him is protesting and yelling, here he is, and Adelaide, our brother, in front of the police, praying all night, Sunday night, and then Monday morning being arrested. And this is comedy, but in the arrest document it says, reason for arrest, disturbing the peace. Really disturbing the peace there, that's big time. He takes a vow of silence every Monday, so on this day he wrote a note to the officer saying, brother, I know you got to do this is your job. So he wasn't even judging the officer. He said, I love you. And he always brings out this message that I love you, no matter what. And he's writing to the officers also that when I do get out, I'm willing to take you out for lunch. But this idea of, again, shining light when darkness approaches. Very powerful, and this message of oneness and that being. And I'm going to I wanted to share Pancho's story because I think it's really powerful. I wanted to move on to this other thing. This was a poster in my high school class. I went to high school here in Roland Heights. I remember Miss Nolte's class, my calculus class. Justification for a higher education. And then there's this poster of a mansion off a cliff and 5-car garage, and this really inspired me to study hard. It really was like a deep inspiration for me to be like, I will get there one day. And the message I wanted to bring out was the idea of what successful life is. And I think it's beautiful. This is beautiful. So I love, there was another banner that I wanted to put in there. I guess I had forgotten to put it there. But it's a beautiful quote. It says something to the effect of, make sure that you feel good about your life from the inside and not just judge it by its outside. So it's not that having all this stuff is not good, but the question that I wanted to pose in this moment was that I think it's so important for us to step back as often as possible and reflect how we're feeling inside. No matter what we have, what we do, where we're at, but how does the inside space feel? Is there a lot of suffering going on? Is there joy? Is there, whatever it is? But to take that step back and constantly ask ourselves is a way that we can constantly recalibrate towards feeling that space, that effortlessness, that space of joy and non-suffering. And I think that's so important, that a successful life is nothing more than feeling that joy inside whatever we have, whatever we do with, And so I think it's really important to share that reflection on it as often as possible. Sometimes we go a year without thinking about those things. And it's great that we have homes and spaces like this that bring those thoughts up, make us reflect. I think the more we can ask ourselves, where am I? Like, how am I feeling about the way I'm living? If I left today, would I say that this has been a good journey? That's a great way to pose it. If I left today, we don't know when we're going to be heading out. But would I be able to look back and say, this has been good? This is the way I wanted to live. This is the spirit in which I wanted to live. So I wanted to share a song that I wrote called Graduation, but it was more about what does it mean to graduate from life. And so I wrote it from that perspective as a graduation speech, in the sense of what does it mean to graduate from life, and not to mean at the end of life, but sooner than later, so that once we graduate, then we can live. This idea. And I used to always be inspired by graduation speeches, but I just thought, why only college and high school? The song is called Graduation. Have your eye on the goal, but then let it all go. For everything changes, you will come to know. Every plan you make and every seed you sow is impermanent. Nothing is ever yours to own. Once you realize this, you will see the truth that you never were the planter of your own fruits. But accept these gifts, even if you don't know from who, and kindly bring forward to those behind you. Because ultimately, what we take will always disappear. But what we give will live on for years. So keep giving of your stuff and yourself until your ego has completely melted. Be wary of the impact you want to make. Instead, make sure you are impacted each day. Have your eye on the sky, but still see the ants. For the small things are the foundation of all that will last. We move on as time passes by. Oh, we move from darkness to light. We reach the top and we look back high. But we cry, filled with tears of joy. Be careful not to accumulate too many things, because you might just end up with a pot full of greed, and doing likewise can also be deceiving. So I encourage you all to practice just being. Be still, be happy, be loving, be kind, be humble, be magical, be aware, but be
be blind, don't judge. See the good in each and every soul. Use your mind when needed, but follow your heart even more. So don't forget to thank God every time you fail, because your journey from failure will be a legacy and tale. Remember to feed birds, hug trees, and bow to the sun until you and Mother Nature are one. The last thing is to be grateful for all of your gifts, for gratitude and suffering cannot coexist. Once you reach this space, every moment will be bliss. This graduating class will mark our success. We move on as time passes by. Oh, we move from darkness to light. We reach the top and we look back high. We cry, look the tears of joy. Passes by, let's just hope we move from darkness to light. When we reach the top and we look back, I hope you cry, filled with tears of joy, satisfied. So I think we're good on time now. I have a few minutes left. I wanted to share just the last message, which I think, I feel like deeply resonates in this home. These are my teachers, Vishal and his mother, of this message of gratitude. And I wanted to share a small story which kind of resonated deeply into my heart and has made a deep imprint to never forget. I feel like we all have these little signs in our lives. And Vishal was one of my kids that I worked with in that musical. So their family became very close with mine. And when in 2011 we had a show that evening in our city, Ahmedabad. This was 2011, November 22nd. And I remember after the show, we had invited the parents, but after the show, I didn't see them, but I had gotten 15 missed calls from Vishal's dad. And I was like, oh, he was just calling me to tell me that he couldn't make it. That's fine. And it was midnight by then. I was like, I won't bother him right now. So I called him the next morning. So what happened, Dad? I got your calls. He said, I was calling you because our house was demolished. Our homes, half of our whole slum community was demolished yesterday. And I was really shook because that was not expected. And I had been to their homes many times. And they lived on a slum community right off the riverbed, where they would, they have to defecate on the riverbed. That's the type of environment they had. And it's called Shankar. And the way the government worked it out was anybody within 50 yards of the river, because they were creating a riverfront project, like a boardwalk, they gave them that day's notice and then they demolished it. And I was really shook. I know it was a really challenging time in their lives. I said, I'll be there in a few minutes, and I went to the grocery store and then picked up the kids who lived at the ashram at that time. And we went there, and it was utter chaos. Half of the slum community was still thriving. The other half was flat, in rubble, like this rubble. And we reached there. Finally, we find them. They're sitting on top of their rocks. They have a home that was like 10 feet by 7 feet. Everything is gone from their lives. And we reached there, and they're smiling. They hug me. And they ask me, what do you want to drink? Chai, coffee, cold drinks. And they weren't even joking around. They said, Nimo, sir, what do you want to drink? And I started laughing. I said, are you kidding me? You guys are asking me? Right now? I said, yeah, we'll get something for you. Whatever rupees they might have had, I don't even know what they had. And at that moment, it hit me that I have no room to
ever complain in my life again. They were teaching me. I have no room to not be grateful for whatever blessings I have in my life. And with those blessings, feel like, what can I offer back in whatever small ways? And I feel like all of us have these signs. This is a sign that shine this light for me. And all of us have these signs in our lives. It could be a death in a family. It could be some news that we're watching and we take it deeply and embrace what's actually happening instead of taking it at a brain level. It could be something that happens in our community with our health, whatever it may be, but there are signs in all of our lives that say, hey, don't forget, you have a blessed life. Amidst all the darkness and struggle that you might be going through, we have a blessed life. And how do we find that gratitude for that? Because that really shifts the lens. It's a beautiful, simple quote by Melody Beattie. Gratitude unlocks the fullness of life. It turns what we have into enough and more. It turns denial into acceptance, chaos to order, confusion to clarity. It turns a meal into a feast, a house into a home, a stranger into a friend. Just to shift in the lens, that's all it is. But it's important to cultivate. It's not easy sometimes because it's so easy for us to get sucked up into our daily life. So it requires an actual commitment to saying, how am I going to practice this on a daily basis? What are the things? Before a meal, what are the small little things I'm going to actually put into my daily life to shift the way I'm breathing and eating and sleeping and embracing all these blessings while I'm here? So, as a way to end this offering, we would love to share this song and have you all sing together. And the we is a special guest that's standing at the door right now for the last 10 minutes. My brother Daniel. He just came from 2 services in Seal Beach.
Boy, are my arms tired.
Awesome to have you, buddy. Do you want to share anything about the song or about gratitude?
Nimo contacted me we become friends already, and we worked on, did they hit the Planting Seeds song today? All right. And the Planting Seeds collaboration we already did, and then he said, let's, for next I want to do a song about gratitude. So he was in India, I was in my little studio in Orange, and we produced this very, very long distance. And I think you emailed me your vocal, your rap. And then we finished the song. It was the first thing, by the way, I was just telling somebody today in Seal Beach, it was the first song that I wrote in a recording studio that was made from contributions, from gifts, right, like a Kickstarter type thing. I had several hundred people support the making of my little recording studio. So it was actually a very emotional thing to write this chorus to Nimo's rap. I was feeling very grateful was the point of it. And then the video was produced by friends of Nimo's and people all over the world sent footage of themselves. If you haven't seen the video, very beautiful thing. And so anyway, I'm proud of it. It's a beautiful thing. Yeah.
Thank you, Dan, for coming up and sharing space with all of us.
Pleasure. This is lovely.
Love you all. Thank you all for sharing this moment, and Reverend Judy, Reverend Glenda, for allowing us to share it this way. Such a blessing. This song is my favorite. Please sing along. The words are there.
You can rap with Nimo if you know it. Go for it.
You're my life, you're my breath, you're the smile, you're my best. You're the earth, you're the sun, you're the grass, you're my love, you're my hands, you're a blood, you're my eyes, you're a hug. You're the light in the dark, you're the spark, you are fun. You're my mom, you are water, you're the stars, you're my daughter, you're my friend to the end. You're my dreams, you're my father, you're the hands on the ground, the miracles that surround. I'm feeling it all around. Hemisphere in the clouds, you're my pain, you're my sorrow, you're my hope for tomorrow, you're the strength when I'm hollow, you're the path that I follow, you're the blessings that exist, the small things that are bliss, the
gift to realize everything is a gift.
All that I see, all that I've been, and all that I'll ever be is a blessing. It's so amazing, and I'm grateful for it all. For it all. I'm grateful for it
You're the blessings every time I try to count. You're the lesson that I learn every time I turn around. You're the water when I'm burned. Every time I think I found everything I'm looking for. You're the sign saying stop and take a bow and keep moving forward and start looking towards your heart. You'll open all the doors and only then you'll start to hear the world singing chorus with your mind and heart. Aligned in purpose, everything will feel work.
all that I see, all that I've been, and all that I'll ever be is a blessing. It's so amazing, and I'm grateful for it all. For it all.
Every day I sit and pray because what I have is more than I deserve or could ever imagine. How do I give back to all of this magic and spread the love so everybody can have it? Doesn't matter if I'm rich or poor, if I got a family or if I'm all alone. Bad things happen, I can just complain and moan, but there's a million things that I can be grateful for.
So I lift up my hands now,
So I lift up my hands.
and I open my heart, and my gratitude goes out to everything near and far.
Everything I see, everything I hope, and everything I dream, everything I feel, and everything I be. I look, deep, feel, and feel. It's a blessing. Everything I am, everything I see, everything I hope, and everything I dream, everything I feel, everything I am. I'm grateful for it all. Everything I am, everything I see, everything I hope, and everything I dream, everything I feel, and everything I feel.
Is a blessing. It's so amazing, and